Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. So we have another 3-film week here for you folks. So our first entry for Footwork February is Singin' in the Rain, co-directed by Stanley Donen and Gene Kelly. We then are continuing our David Lynch study with his 1986 film Blue Velvet. And finally, the new film, now released in theaters, Companion, directed by Drew Hancock. I'm excited to get into that one. Like I said, it's just 3 movies here, folks. Let's see what Vincent Daly has to say about them. Stay tuned and enjoy the show. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing over there, buddy?
Tommy, boy, how's it going?
It's going okay with me. How was another short week of movies, but how was it?
Oh, short week of movies, but not lacking in quality. This was a pretty decent week of movies here, and very enjoyable for me. I mean, obviously, Singing in the Rain, it's
a big boy.
Yeah, it's a big boy.
It's a big boy.
It was a little nerve-wracking to cover in a way, just because it's just one of those legendary films. Blue Velvet was nerve-wracking on the complete opposite end of the spectrum.
Because it was David Lynch.
Yeah, closer to a panic attack, really. And Companion, just a real surprise. I thought it was a real surprise looking at February. I don't know if we're going to get anything as strong for Companion, so we'll see.
I didn't really know much about it, and I don't know. I talked to you over the weekend, and you had said that you surprisingly enjoyed yourself.
Yeah.
And so that's super exciting. Yeah, I mean the biggest one is Singin' in the Rain, and I brought it up in the news podcast. I totally messed up last week because I said it was in. For the record, I've seen the movie before.
Oh, really?
Which
is
really sad.
Yeah.
So basically, I said it was in black and white. It's not. It's totally in color, and I forgot. And then I thought that milk was used for the Singing in the Rain classic scene.
Right.
And they just used water.
I will say it was like a one of those movie legends, one of those kind of like urban legends.
It was a widespread myth.
Yes.
It was a very widespread myth. And so when I looked it up, it's just like, no, it wasn't. I mean, they had to do something special with filming. And they used, I forget what they used. Or maybe just up the backlighting or something like that.
Okay.
But, not milk used. I was completely wrong last week.
There's one shot of like one of the gutters really like gushing water, and it looks white. Like it really does look like milk.
And milk, I think milk has been used in the past. Like for black and white films,
to have
milk has been used before.
Right,
it's the same thing with ice cream cones in movies. It's just mashed potatoes.
Oh, right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, or like the Raymore and Flanagan fake fruit that they put around the furniture. I used to love that going to furniture stores.
Yeah.
The fake fruit. Yeah. It's just like, which one looks the most real?
The competition.
Okay, so any opening notes here for this week, Vin?
I have just one quick bone to pick with trailers.
Some trailer talk. Go for it.
So Companion, obviously very, very new. I saw the third cut for Mickey 17 as a trailer, and then also the second cut for Ryan Coogler's Sinners that's coming out later this year.
Oh, Michael B. Michael B. Jordan, yeah.
And man, they just show everything. I was already at a point with Mickey 17 that I like saw way too much, and just kind of wanted to just almost forget about it. Men in Black, flash myself to actually enjoy the experience. But especially with that second cut of Sinners. I mean, literally everything, down to like twists with specific characters and wow, just really terrible.
I think there's a case to be made that trailers and the way trailers are cut today are probably in the top 5 things of why the movie industry or the theater industry is failing.
Interesting.
There is something about the way these trailers have been cut and them showing you too much, or just being made really, really bad.
Yeah,
that just makes it look like the film sucks.
Yeah.
that it keeps people away. You finally get people in the theater to watch a movie. You hit them with now, at least in AMC theaters, a half an hour of bad trailers.
Ridiculous.
And you're asking them not to come back.
Yeah.
I mean, everything from that unicorn movie that's coming out, we see the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the weird thing with Mickey 17 is that Bong Joon-ho, one of the talks of why he got pushed back so much was because he wanted Final Cut on it. And so, I mean, for people who don't know what Final Cut is, but it's what it is. So it's that the director has the last say on his movie, where almost always a director gets finished with the product and then it goes to the producers or the distribution or the production team and they take a hatchet to it, basically, or they do whatever they want to your film.
Sure.
So
that's when we get like the test screening and whatnot. And,
yes.
kind of studio
Or
notes.
you had, like, he was famous for doing this. Who is the bad guy in jail? Weinstein.
okay.
Harvey Weinstein was known.
There's a lot of. I don't know why I went to Roman Polanski as the first one, but I actually don't think he's in jail either.
So when it comes to you, or that's one of the biggest things with this is Harvey Weinstein was known for taking people's film and chopping them.
Oh, wow.
He always wanted things under 2 hours. A famous thing with Paul Thomas Anderson and Miramax with what was his first with Hard 8.
Yeah.
So I think they changed the name, and he didn't get Final Cut.
Whoa.
And there was stuff that really upset him with that.
Sure.
So then when he made Boogie Nights, like that's why in the very beginning of Boogie Nights, when it does that one take shot, it starts with the sign that says Boogie Nights, because that way they can't take it out. They can't change the name of the movie too long.
Wow.
Yeah, the Brutalist director now, he made up his big speech at the Golden Globes.
Yep.
Was, he was all about him getting Final Cut and saying it's important to do. And
Sure.
I do think it is. It's like, what's the director's vision? That's his deal. You know what I mean? And Bong Joon-ho, it seems like, had Final Cut, but he couldn't cut the trailer, is what it seems like. And that's just a shame, because you look at a Paul Thomas Anderson, always he writes it in the contracts now, where he gets not only Final Cut, but he also gets trailer cut too.
Yeah.
Which is why you get a Licorice Pizza cut.
And it's a great trailer.
And it's a great trailer.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
And I don't know. I mean, obviously, that film was on ice. It coming around. It probably needs a third cut just to keep people's interest.
The trailer,
but
you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it just has man, it's just shown way
too much. And I just expect better from that director.
Yeah.
Or maybe I don't know.
And again, down to specific character twists in Sinners. I mean, that the latest one, I couldn't even recommend watching the trailer at all, because it's just you're going to give away the movie. And there's the entire movie.
I know. And there's a case to be made now to just show up a half an hour late to film.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we walk in there 25 minutes late, and we're good to go.
Yeah,
you get nervous sometimes, like Tom's got to get his popcorn, he needs to get his drink. We walk in there multiple times. You're just like, I thought we were going to be late.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got you. Don't worry
absolutely.
about it. All right, so we are jumping back to 1952, and I do kind of have point of order on something right away.
Oh, okay.
So Singing in the Rain isn't Singing in the Rain, it's Singin'.
Oh.
Singing in the Rain.
Nice.
And I
Good
kind of
catch.
Right? What do I do on the website?
Singing? Yeah, I mean, if it's singing,
if it's officially singing,
yeah, absolutely.
Apostrophe,
I guess.
Okay.
I don't know how that's going to help the searchability on the site.
That's my fear.
Yeah,
that's the one thing we need to work on is our search.
It's going to throw things off.
So, Singin' in the Rain, 1952. I mean, it needs no introduction. It's a full color film. And go ahead.
It's a full color film.
Co-directed by Stanley Donen, and then also
Gene Kelly
himself.
Yes, which is honestly great to see. I mean, I feel like almost like the turn that we see in action stars or fight coordinating talent directing their own type of films. I like seeing when dance performers are in the some sort of element of the production here. They were, behind the scenes in some way. But folks, with the swap over from Fred Astaire February to the more general footwork February, that's the best I could come up with. I wanted to lead off with a big one. And honestly, you don't get much bigger than this, even compared to Astaire's own catalog.
Yeah, seriously.
This is the first, I would say the first time we saw Gene Kelly on the podcast was for 1946's Ziegfeld Follies, where you see a pretty awesome head-to-head dance-off between him and Astaire, and I mean that as dorky as it sounds. I mean, it really was like an awesome head-to-head. for the one or two people that might actually care for these reviews, I want to be a bit childish and continue that spirit of competition. Tom, straight up, I'm rooting against these movies. I don't want my boy to be dethroned.
Yeah.
I gotta rep it for Fred.
You planted your flag on the planet of Fred Astaire.
Yes, exactly. The oddly shaped planet of Fred Astaire. And listen, I get it. Gene, he's got the looks. He's debonair. Let's be honest, Fred's squash-shaped head just can't compete when it comes to him being the romantic lead in these. But he's got it where it counts, and I think still, in my heart is the best dancer. But I want to, branch out, even though I'm scared that he might be dethroned, especially a movie this big.
You're the only one holding your feet to the fire on this one. Footwork February? I can't even say it. All your idea.
Yeah. It is all my idea. That's what I'm like. Realistically, I was starting this, writing the notes for this, and I was like, this is for me. This is for the one or two people, folks at home, that you might care about this or not. But, truly, I say this. These are the movies I want to watch.
Oh, yeah.
These
are the ones you're excited about.
Absolutely. Singin' in the Rain is a throwback musical calling back to the silent and golden age of Hollywood, both in style and song. While it might be odd to call this a jukebox musical, surprisingly, this is a nostalgic-fueled love letter and pulls all of its songs from other musicals. Some we've even covered in this segment of the podcast. Gene Kelly plays John Lockwood, a massive silent movie star, and Donald O'Connor plays Cosmo Brown, his partner in crime. In the long line of musical comedies about show business, the two try to kind of scrape their way by, and in a great meet cute with Debbie Reynolds, his fame is challenged for the first time, and now can't seem to get her out of his mind. That won't be the last challenge, though, as like the real Hollywood at the time, the talkies threaten these silent film stars, shaking up everything they know. On the evening of their disastrous talkie premiere, the idea strikes them to make a musical out of their failing movie, transforming the dueling cavalier to the dancing cavalier. I gotta say, this was surprisingly funny. I thought, honestly, had
actually funny.
Yeah, fantastic comedic timing, especially Donald O'Connor. Really, really just excellent. Really surprised me there. And I always like these type of musical comedies, musical romance comedies from back in the day. I think their type of jokes, it either is slapsticky, or I don't know, they're like quips. They're not actually, no, I shouldn't say that. They're not really quips. They're just like zingers, it's old fashioned.
Yeah, it's like 50s ham.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the one through line with all of these musicals, because they're not just musicals, it's musical rom-com.
Yes.
And back in the day, rom-com.
Exactly. Yeah, back in the day, that was just rom-com.
Yeah, and it can get very formulaic.
Yeah.
Because it's like, here we go again for another bit of a romp.
Yeah.
And it's just funny going through all of these films year after year, because you get a huge variety or roller coaster of very good and very bad.
Yep.
And you're just like taking the dartboard out and trying to see which one's good. I mean, that's what you do.
Well,
let's watch this one this week. Let's see where it lands on the board.
Exactly. And that's where it's like, this one was a little nerve-wracking just because of the legend behind Singin' in the Rain.
Yeah.
But there's something there that I do like watching these. These are something I want to seek out because I want to call heads or tails on which one of these
homework.
Massive ones. Exactly.
You are doing homework for us. Yeah.
What's actually good, chop through the weeds on this.
And it's good to hear that this one actually wasn't, the comedy was actually getting you to a certain extent.
Absolutely.
Because that's almost the one thing that almost always fails.
Fails.
True. It could be cute and charming.
Right.
But, it's
not
funny.
actually funny. Yeah. Especially with tying so many jokes to Hollywood. This honestly felt a little embarrassing not seeing this, but praising La La Land as a must watch. Both of these movies, comedy, work in the same way despite huge gaps in decades. They're trying to give a degree of, obviously there's comedy between our main trio, but a lot of the setups are poking fun at the Hollywood system, the struggle they have in this transition from silent films to talkies, and almost like an in-industry, behind the scenes type of look, and that's where the comedy comes from. Actually, speaking of Damien Chazelle, it's crazy how much 2022's Babylon unsuccessfully rips off from this movie in its silent to talky transition plot.
Really?
And I mean, it was just like unbelievable because I saw both elements of La La Land and Babylon. I was just like, wow, I mean, Damien, I think we found the source. And more importantly, Babylon kind of being embarrassing of what this film is like effortlessly good at.
Right.
Our main trio, though, is excessively charming in this, and key to pulling off those beats. I think the comedic rhyming or the comedic timing was excellent, but that's only at the hands of this trio. Donald O'Connor, obviously a bit annoying on purpose, but his dance comedy routine in the track "Make 'Em Laugh" shows some serious skills of his own.
The number twos in these films, usually these films, main guy, main girl, and then you have dude number two.
Yep.
And dude number two very often is the better dancer.
I agree. A lot of the times that wasn't in the formula of the Fred Astaire movies because it was just him and Ginger,
Fred.
basically.
It's Fred, yeah.
But yeah, there was something there that was just like, wow.
Fred's the one who knocks. With his heels, of course.
Yeah, he's tapping. But there was something there, like especially in this track that it was just Donald O'Connor. You look at it, it was like, wow, he's definitely got.
He's got the speed.
Yeah. Despite not him having a name that's kind of echoed throughout history, like Gene Kelly or something like that. Debbie Reynolds, who I actually just discovered was Carrie Fisher's mom. Did not know that.
That's fun.
Yeah, crazy.
That's a great note. Fantastic for that.
Is just instantly one of the best partners I've seen in one of these old movies. I was a bit disappointed in a last-second rug pull of the romance, very much in the meme that we talk about with these old musical comedies of, I didn't love him, but now I love him. Yeah. But I think she was just really wonderful otherwise.
Wow.
And just like surprisingly charming.
So she didn't ruin Star Wars either.
She certainly did not ruin The Last Jedi, becoming a force specter flying through space. And honestly, as for Gene, I would say let's just get to talking about some of the standout dances in this. I think the mark of quality here, and I go back to last year's special on Fred Astaire, kind of the best of the best that I was collecting throughout the years, even pre-podcast, is that the mark of quality is that not a single dance scene is weak here. But there was just some clear standouts, which frustratingly, Singing in the Rain was not included with them. Fit as the Fiddle is our first track in the movie and is one of the most technical. It really showed me how much Donald O'Connor can hang with Gene Kelly's skills, despite, again, not being a name that, you remember, just like, oh, yeah, he, super famous from those old musicals or something like that. Yeah,
even if you never watched any of the movies, you know the name Gene Kelly.
Bingo.
Fred Astaire, Bing Crosby.
Absolutely. Yeah. That goes double for the track Moses Supposes, which is probably the most impressive and difficult tap routine of the whole movie, which... if there is a specific flavor of these dance scenes that I'm after like the really intense tap scenes. Yeah. Just because they're the most demanding. They're the action. Good Morning is super iconic, and honestly, I'd be lying if I didn't say it didn't bring a big smile to my face. It definitely shows how our trio works so well together. If anything, I was saying I wish there was more tracks like this that all three of them were interacting in a fun way.
Sure.
Also kind of breaks up a little bit. Obviously, Kelly and Reynolds are the romantic link there. But when all three of them are together, it does become a little bit more platonic and I think works in a much better way. That's kind of going back to the comedic timing of it. It's not, no one's third wheel, basically, mainly Donald O'Connor.
Right, yeah.
My favorite was no doubt the biggest, however. Broadway Melody is Gene's most impressive solo performance, and believe me, I wasn't kidding about snubbing Singing in the Rain either. I really thought it was kind of like, whatever. The routine itself is a callback to the huge variety in these musicals that it's being wonderfully inspired by, and Kelly absolutely kills it here. We get his iconic shoulder spin move, which kind of personal goal is I'm hoping to spot the origin of in one of these movies. But like I said earlier, this is such a deliberate love letter that I promise you will appreciate if you have followed along with the movies we've covered in the past few Februaries, even if you're not watching these, folks. Broadway Melody, Ziegfeld Follies, those are the type of musicals this is not only directly calling back to and paying homage to, it is pulling specific songs, and to see them done in, frankly speaking, a much higher caliber is very impressive, and I think for the specifics of how we watch movies on the podcast, of kind of tracking them, doing director's studies, trying to do the homework, like you said, Tom, there was something very enjoyable about this big segment for Broadway Melody that I was able to spot why this was just such a love letter to it, so... While I was very much tempted to lead with this praise, I felt it necessary to end with it for my recommendation, though. The way this movie looks, the cinematography, the way it's filmed, is extremely impressive. I thought this was an excessively good-looking movie.
It's poppy. It looks poppy.
Yeah, this was, I wouldn't call this modern, especially it being a nostalgic callback to even older time at the time. But I just love how this looks. The closest thing I could compare it to was maybe the original West Side Story, where colors of the film are just surprisingly a key aspect to how enjoyable it is. The colors are almost a character in themselves. And in that sense, a little bit like, just a couple of months ago when we covered Wizard of Oz, that the pop of color is just so much. It's so vibrant, and it just jumps out at you so clearly.
Well, did you...
What?
I'm looking at you?
No,
it's the same cinematographer.
Oh, really? Yeah. There you go.
It's the same cinematographer as the Wizard of Oz.
Wow, I didn't catch that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Harold Rosen.
Well, Harry, you got the eye. Maybe
that's really funny you said that. Wow. I thought you were leading up to it.
No, genuine. Yeah, that's great.
What do I know? I thought the film was in black and white. So. I watched it years ago, but I have seen it.
Yeah. I think it's understandable because I literally just assumed the same thing. Like even in prepping for this February,
right.
In the movies, I was just like, yeah.
Well, even last week I was like, well, black and white, the milk, and you're just like, oh, of course, that makes sense.
Yeah. That sounds like a trick.
No. When I was a kid, I watched it because I went through a phase where I liked musicals.
Oh.
Then I grew up. Sorry.
So true. That's also where your rabid love of White Christmas comes from.
Yes.
So.
Absolutely. Been wanting to get that movie watched for 2.5 years now.
Yeah, so much so that when we covered the one movie with, I think it was Holiday Inn, with Bing Crosby and Fred Astaire, you were just like, oh, it's got to be great, right? It's like one of the weakest.
Oh, man. But anyway, so cinematographer, Harold Rosen, great, poppy, colors, looks phenomenal.
Really, I think that's evidence to maybe check out some of his work, because it was just an incredible looking film. And honestly, that is a surefire way to land you in a must-watch for me. We're going to go ahead and give Singin' in the Rain, 1952, an 83.
83%. Yeah. Excellent. I can't. It's fantastic.
A huge movie. Like I said, I have a conflict of interest as far as wanting to see Fred Astaire, continue as the king. But this was undeniable.
And I do like the homework you're doing here, because you go through some of these main titles and then some of that not so well known films. And I have to say, it's like, I don't know. Because you do enjoy these films, it's a great, you actually watching them, you want to see good numbers, and if you do that, okay, you have some sort of percentage you're going to hit.
Yeah.
Then if the acting can be okay, that's even better.
Right.
Then if the movie actually looks good and not just like a typical made movie, something stands out, okay, you have that going for you. And I can see the extra percentages globbing onto this film.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's cool. That's great. That Singing in the Rain
lives up to the hype.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
There's something there that, again, there was almost an intimidating factor coming into this. But
it's like, what if I hate this?
Yeah,
right.
yeah. What if I really can't separate my priorities of reviewing and loving Fred Astaire? But there was something here. It was so clearly, again, if anything, in the trio, in the little moments that you see our trio interact, just effortlessly good.
Yeah. Excellent. 83% for Singin' in the Rain. Let's get undoubtedly what's going to... creepy? Weird?
Undescribable, almost.
We're jumping into 1986. This film garnered David Lynch's second Best Director nomination
yes.
In the Oscars, and it's called Blue Velvet. And it's got a lot of actors in this as well. But Blue Velvet, you should set it up and just kind of jump into it with us.
This is a doozy. I mean, the amount of times I have written "hoo boy" in my notes is unreal. I would say where I want to start is kind of just talking about Lynch's career once again. I would say as a sideline enjoyer of Twin Peaks, his TV show in a couple years from this release, and it's kind of utter insanity at times. I always just assumed that these were connected in some way because of Kyle MacLachlan's inclusion. And despite a lot of motifs, it really is not. It's not connected in any way, which was good for me. But I think it did spotlight something interesting as far as a similarity of all his projects, is that set design, oddly enough, and the feel of his sets stand out to me as an important piece in pinning down the Lynchian style. Honestly, I can say the same thing for a few of Lynch's later films as well, especially kind of when we get into Mulholland Drive and Lost Highway, but we are still 4 years before his big breakout on TV and a lot of movies to go. But that's where I think I'm actually gearing towards what's the Lynch trademark. It's kind of the atmosphere of his sets, of his settings, what they kind of conjure, more so than the surrealness, actually.
That surprises you?
Well, I guess my assumption was that it's just the surreal aspect specifically.
Like the vibe, his
exactly.
vibe. Right.
But I think it's much more in the atmosphere of the films. And maybe they're one and the same, but there's something there that I think that's where I'm kind of leading to, or at least appreciating for this study. After the failure that was Lynch's adaptation of Dune, he wanted to create something that was more surreal and reflective of his earlier work. The infusion of noir stylings to his usual insanity honestly just made a perfect match. And even without seeing the rest of the movies on this list to come, you can tell how that became his trademark in the next decade plus, of just kind of like a smoke-filled room, a little bit of a throwback as far as its noir stylings, but then still very much like surreal and insane. And boy, is it a doozy. That's the second one. Blue Velvet is a noir erotic thriller that strikes at the core of human curiosity and fascination with unraveling a mystery. Kyle MacLachlan plays Jeffrey, I believe a college-age kid in this. I wasn't too sure. And that seems to be bored more than anything. On one of his many walks, he finds a severed ear on the same day his world is rocked by a family illness. Dropping the ear off with the police, he becomes deeply obsessed with the case yet to be unfolded around it. His attraction getting a big boost from the detective's teenage daughter, played by Laura Dern, who feeds him clues slowly. Almost at every turn, there is more to uncover, and with it, Jeffrey's obsession grows deeper and stranger as he becomes entangled with the sick and twisted underworld of the town. If looking for a mystery was his way of curing boredom, he stumbled into some crazy shit. And behind it all is one crazy Dennis Hopper.
He's the guy.
It's unreal. Talk about a 180 with good old Denny, because I went from really not caring for him at all, especially after our motorcycle episode that we covered, Easy Rider.
Yep.
To like, wow. I mean, this is by far my favorite role with him. I would really love to talk more about the plot of this film, because this, really goes places. It feels like a small movie, but there is just so much that happens and unfolds and twists in it. And for that reason, I felt firsthand how this benefited from not knowing too much. So I want to stay kind of arm's length with it a little bit.
Sure.
From the first opening scene, though, the movie is very intentional about what it's trying to get across. We go from a shot of white picket fences fading into writhing insects in the dirt. underneath the facade of life, there is still a darkness. And the setting contrasts your typical suburbia with, whatever the hell I just watched coming out of the darkest corners of Lynch's mind. It really is. It almost goes from, feeling cookie cutter, but intentionally cookie cutter for how much it shocks you. It's very wild, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't thinking about it all week. This movie...
It's got you that much.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Made you feel a certain way.
Absolutely. It was so strange and so shocking that, my thoughts and my notes of the film really evolved over the week quite a bit. If anything, I kind of needed more time to stew on the movie because of just how much, certain elements, like for instance, I thought the soundtrack was a little cliche. My original note was like, this is a Hey Arnold ass soundtrack.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Just very cliche horns. I felt like Hey Arnold. But there's something there that I feel it's very intentional of what it sets you up almost as shorthand for okay, this is just another noir movie, and how it twists that and says, no, you have no f***ing idea what this is about. The film has a crazy habit of setting up the most innocuous scene and just smacking you bold across the face with something shocking. It's really crazy. It almost becomes a rhythm to the film, believe it or not. You'll be getting comfortable, kind of setting in, and then the movie just shows you the strangest, most disturbing thing possible mixed into it. It's wild.
Is it cheap? Is it a parlor trick?
No.
Or is it its style? Lynch's?
It's definitely, yeah.
Okay.
This is where we've really settled into no training wheels on Lynch's.
He has a vision for this.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's something very deliberate there. I think actually one of Lynch's greatest tools is just slowed down audio, which is so simple but so effective at flipping on the crazy like he loves to do. And it's not just one type of strange either. I think that description of it in the genre of noir, erotic thriller, that erotic side of it was what kind of made me see this as so unique and not just another cookie cutter, De Palma wannabe.
Sure.
It's not just one type of strange. I think the most shocking was how these erotic scenes were almost never played for arousing, an arousing moment or anything like that. More often than not, sex is our pipeline right to the core of these characters' desires and what they're about, and becomes a very chaotic window into these characters, which was just so interesting. Not to play this, how I expected it to play, as kind of all right, this is a detective thriller, let's have some sexy time, that's it. Mm-hmm. No, the way that is used is so much more deliberate and so much more strange. I would say both Isabella Rossellini and Dennis Hopper's character embody that chaos, that chaotic window into their soul perfectly. And I'll do my best to avoid spoilers, but I need to talk about at least one of them, and that's Dennis Hopper. Like I said, flashback to our motorcycle episode, and I probably would have told you I don't really care for Dennis Hopper at all. This role turned this around completely. His performance here is legitimately unhinged. I think it goes way, way beyond just a hammy villain performance. This wasn't him just showing up to set and just okay, let's turn on, the fun villain here. No, there is, it's unhinged. There's no other word for it. This almost puts other type of unhinged performances to shame. I honestly cannot wait to see Nick Cage in the next movie, because I can't even imagine what the combination of Lynch and Cage will do. It is unreal. Hopper in this is the reason you watch the movie. He is wild in this.
I'm not surprised that he's got that. Hopper can be kind of just, I don't know. I feel like he has that in him.
Yeah.
Who am I trying to think of? One of the best actors. He was doing Wild Horses on Apple. Played, Gordon in the Batman movies.
Oh, god damn, Gary Oldman.
Yes. He strikes me as a Gary Oldman-esque who could take a character and be like, whoa, Gary Oldman's going for it.
Right,
like Dennis Hopper is freaking going, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great comparison. I would probably compare this to like Gary Oldman in The Professional, where it's just like, whoa, he's the best part, and he's just so crazy.
He goes crazy. Fifth Element, where he goes nuts.
Sure.
Yeah.
Here, Hopper is at that level, but again, it's not hammy. It's like disturbing.
That's
unhinged. Good. And that's why this was like really sticking with me so much, because it wasn't like just another like,
so he's
that's a great villain role.
Okay, so he's not a hammy supervillain.
No,
or anything like that. He's more like John Malkovich crazy.
Worse.
Okay.
Like unstable, deep, like get this man help. It is wild.
Cool.
Hopper is incredible in this because I would say he's just on overdrive in any scene. I don't see any scene with this. It's just him kind of like plug it in, or this is just another days of work. The absolute best moment is when he's with Kyle, because story reasons, the two obviously like really shouldn't know each other because of the walks of life they're in, but like all things in this movie, the vice grip just gets tighter and tighter as Kyle's curiosity causes him to kind of spiral down into this shithole. The best moment of their interaction is they're going into a bar. They're on like a wild cruise. And Kyle says he drinks Heineken. Heineken is used throughout the whole film. Another early note, I was just like, what is this, like tacky product placement? What is this? But Hopper just, grips his neck. It looks like he hurt him, honestly. And he goes, Heineken, f*** that shit, Pabst Blue Ribbon. And it's just like, this is the best scene ever. This is so good. It's really incredible performance. Hopper gets a nomination the same year at the Oscars for a role in the movie called Hoosiers. But I'm telling you, they got that one totally backwards.
What is that question mark at the end of Hoosiers?
Yeah, I don't know Hoosiers.
One of the greatest, well-known sports movies of all time. One of the key, one of basically the most well-known role for Gene Hackman. Legendary stories on set of Gene Hackman shitting on the film.
Wow.
And saying how bad of it it's going to be, and it's not going to be anything. It is one of the most loved, one of the most beloved, one of the biggest, most well-known sports movies of just the existence of film.
Listen, news to me. I guess we got to do another sports episode, because I literally didn't know what it was. I clicked on it I was doing research, and then I saw it was like some basketball movie. I was just like, what?
I love this.
What is that?
Your love for Blue Velvet. And Dennis Hopper Blue Velvet. It's
just Hoosiers is catching
that
strays.
That is so funny. Oh man, is that funny?
But this was by far my favorite role I've ever seen him in, and definitely, not that he is the main focus, but again, a movie you watch for Hopper, which I just simply couldn't say before this. So
I love it.
Yeah, that's also we call back to our Color of Money episode. That's the same Oscars that Color of Money won. So.
This one is the same.
Yep.
Wow.
So 86 into 87.
That's my favorite sports movie.
Yeah, I guess it was a good year for sports. I'll add Hoosiers to the list. Folks, Blue Velvet gets its noir spin from its very voyeuristic and creepy dive of Kyle's character. But personally, I think this straight up beats out a lot of the Brian De Palma movies we watched last year that all had a similar vibe. Specifically, Body Double and this have very similar aims, what they're trying to capture. This one just wipes the floor with, honestly, probably,
that doesn't surprise me.
Aside from Scarface, this wipes the floor with De Palma's, formula.
Well, it sounds like what they do with sex is completely different. And how they utilize it.
Where absolutely, because De Palma's was legitimately creepy, because it felt like a little bit like, oh, this is like trying to be like almost exploited sexual, where the sex was a tool to crank up the strange, and was so interesting for that reason. I would say mainly this is a factor, though, because this feels one of a kind despite using a genre that is old by 86 standards, a dusty detective noir. This is like, throwaway stuff. Great that he's doing it, or maybe doing a callback, but This was one of a kind for what it goes for. It's a serious case of curiosity killed the cat, but in the most surreal, panic-inducing way possible. And for that reason, you just gotta check it out. We're gonna go ahead and give Blue Velvet 1986 an 81.
An 81% for David Lynch, Blue Velvet. Fantastic. I love that we're doing the Lynch special here.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of Lynch on the site.
No, we don't.
Especially with him passing away. This is great.
Absolutely.
81, Vin.
Yeah. I really thought this. I mean,
you enjoyed yourself this week.
This ranks among the film buffs online as one of the higher of Lynch's.
Yeah,
Mulholland Drive is like the top. I'm telling you, this is gonna be hard to beat. Do I consider this a must-watch? 85 and above? Quite potentially. I think the only thing that really limits it is just, again, how strange it is. This is truly not for everyone, But there's something here that I'm very curious if this can be topped, because I felt it was just so deliberate and so fine-tuned in its strangeness that, again, I still can't stop thinking about this. I may watch this again.
Now, something tells me, though, that this isn't for the every person.
No, definitely not.
Okay, all right.
Definitely not.
Like,
and
how do you think were you thinking, okay, how would Tom like this?
I
feel like I'd struggle.
Well, no insulting, not as an insult, but I really wasn't thinking about you at all.
You're right. Okay, the way I asked that, okay, thinking about it now.
This movie more so was just like, I was thinking about the movie and only the movie for the last week.
So thinking about it now, if you take a person like me who enjoys film and can like stuff, but I just feel like it's a required taste.
Yes.
You know what? That's David Lynch, though. That's David Lynch.
Bingo. It almost, the fact that it's a Lynch style has...
Yeah, I'm not in a club.
You got to have a little bit of... experimentation with what the movie's going to be, what the experience is going to be. But I will say, Dennis Hopper makes it a recommend at the 80s and above, because I really did think like this was...
It skyrocks.
Enjoyable and just an incredible performance. Again, it bridges way beyond just a hammy villain.
Yeah,
this
I mean, let's be honest.
Unhinged.
Kyle MacLachlan you didn't even bring up, and he's the main actor.
well,
so it just goes to show how good.
Shout out to Twin Peaks. Then we're moving on.
But just goes to show how good Dennis Hopper is.
Yeah.
81% for Blue Velvet. That's excellent. What a good week compared to last week.
It seriously was gonna even maybe score higher, but again, it's just it's just so strange.
Excellent. That's really that's awesome. And by the way, what a year for film. 1986.
Sure.
You had this, which was like the creepy underdog almost, or the creepy indie film at the time.
Yep.
You had The Color of Money, which was my number one.
Yep.
Platoon came out that year.
Oh wow.
Which we're big Platoon guys.
Yep.
And I believe Platoon is coming on Amazon this month. Or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then Top Gun came out as well, and then some others. But like, what a solid year! Some really great movies came out that year.
Absolutely. Also, I mean, not to have beef with Tarantino, but he shits on the 80s quite a bit. I don't know how he can say that with movies like this existing. This is so anti-80s.
Listen, everyone understands. Everyone knows that there's gems in the decade.
Sure.
Even Quentin Tarantino would be like, of course the 50s has good movies, but generally speaking, it's bad movies. Just like the 20-teens. There's some gems, kind of. I don't know. But generally speaking, it's a horrible decade for film.
Very commercial.
You know what I
mean? Where the commercialism kind of takes over.
Yeah, just style dies. You know, it's a whole, in the 50s, we're out of the war, and everything's just like, great job. You know? It's just
pick yourself up by your bootstraps.
Right, exactly. Kind of 80s was, I don't even know. It's just the grunge and the terrible times of the 70s made great, incredible pictures. And then just the 80s. Yeah, it comes in waves. But, of course, you're going to get gems. And 81%, excellent. Very, very good. Okay, so before we go to our last film, our film in theaters, we want to give a shout out to our producer. Geri Duke came in and was a producer for $50, Vin. And also the gentleman's agreement with the handshake. So it came out to be $52 for the transfer fees, which we always appreciate it. Geri, thank you so much. And she just wrote a quick note. She says, "Great job, guys!" ! So super simple.
Yeah.
And if you want to write more, if you got questions, comments, critiques, please write in, email us. It's absolutely no problem. But $50, Geri, you are executive producer of episode 172. We thank you so much for producing the show, for being a producer of the Daily Ratings. So, folks at home, if you want to be a producer of the Daily Ratings, then and send a donation in, head to thedailyratings.com and head to the donations tab. Because through your donations, through your monetary support, you become an actual, legitimate, credited producer of the Daily Ratings. And we're only producer supported here. So we're not advertising supported. We're not going to do Patreon where you have to give us a certain amount of money so we give you more content. We don't have any paywalls where you have to be a member in order to access our content. Everything we do, everything that Vin and I have is there. It's technically for free. But if you're enjoying it, if you're using it, can you send a donation our way and be a producer? That's kind of how we're doing it. You know, what Ben and I do here, it takes definitely a lot of time to do week after week, and we enjoy doing it, no doubt. But also, if you're enjoying it, then can you, send us a little something back? It's called the value for value model. So are you enjoying what we're doing using the website, listening to the podcast? That's value in your pocket. It's kind of how we look at it. Can you send us value back in our pocket? Value for value. So again, if you want to be a producer, go to thedailyratings.com, head to the donations tab, and then if you want to send in a note, and a note can be questions, comments, critiques, suggestions, anything you want to say or ask, you can send our way. Our email is tom.vin@thedailyratings.com. So that's our email, and feel free to email us your note. If you want to be anonymous and not have your name mentioned, just say, hey, I want to be anonymous, and we'll honor that. We'll respect that. But this segment right here, this is the producer segment. It's where we say thank you to all the producers. Jerry, thank you for executive producing episode 172. If you want to be an executive producer of episode 173, just head to thedailyratings.com. Don't forget, we've got our brand new shop. We have our merchandise and everything like that. We've got hats and hoodies and shirts and mugs, and go check it out. You can find our shop link there at the Daily Ratings as well, or thedailyratings.com. All right, Vin, with that, here we go. Let's go into the movie Companion. This wasn't even on my list when I was looking at like the 2025 releases.
Really?
I think it's just because it was so small and not on anybody's radar.
I certainly lumped it in with the rest of the, Valentine's Day fodder.
Yeah, and the director, that's true. The director's not a big director. He comes from not much, some shorts, some TV production, even just like a segment guy. So we don't really know him. He's not a big name that flashed. That kind of flash. I don't really know the main actress all that much. Now, is it Jack Quaid?
Yep.
And is this Dennis?
Yeah, this is his son.
Okay, this is Dennis Quaid's son. Okay, all right. So who's in More and More?
Oh, yeah.
Like he's going to be in multiple things this year coming out.
Almost simultaneously to this, and I think it's called Novocaine, which is in like a kind of a nobody John Wick style type of.
He feels no pain, and he needs to be. Yeah. That's coming out soon.
Yeah, that's coming out soon. So I mean, like this is
he's on a tear,
breaking apart. Yeah.
So anyway, we don't really know much about it, but Companion, the only thing I know is that you kind of were surprised that you liked it.
Yeah, surprisingly.
But I don't know what that means. So get into it and tell us about Companion.
Out of those two movies slated for this year, it really does seem like Jack Quaid has fully stepped out of his TV fame starring in The Boys and now into kind of his father's acting footsteps.
Yes, that's right.
Maybe not exactly for Dennis Quaid's acting footsteps, but, he's kind of got his own millennial style, his millennial shtick, I'll call it, for Jack Quaid. However, the real focus here is for Sophie Thatcher, who we saw not too long ago for Heretic. I've dived a little bit into Yellow Jackets, not actually watching the show. But just,
well-known show.
Yeah, I kind of want to check out Yellow Jackets. It'd be interesting to hear from any folks at home if that is worth the time. She was surprisingly good in this, and I got really solid praise for the whole movie, but I got to get something out of the way. Everyone that has seen this has said, stay away from any spoilers. And for probably the first time in forever, I'm not sure if I would say the same. I'm actually okay with low spoilers on this just to create a good hook for it, a good pitch. This is mostly because the story also gives up the twist pretty early on, and in order for it to have fun with this premise, it's given up the goat, basically. That puts me in a difficult spot because I think the trailer gives it away. Hell, even the poster, I think, gives it away and reveals the punch of this movie. So I'm going to dive in a little bit more than I normally would, but this does get a good recommendation for me if you're looking to stay away from any spoilers like many have been saying about the film.
Okay.
Companion is a dark comedy thriller with a near-future spin that shows us the trouble people would get into in a world with customized customized sex robots designed to be their perfect partner. Our setting is a weekend reunion getaway with a group of 3 couples linked together by old friendships. Quaid is on his way with his infatuated girlfriend, Iris, played by Thatcher. But she is no ordinary girl, shy to a fault, but simply wanting the best for her true love. Iris fights through the social awkwardness to make the most out of the weekend without knowing the scheme being hatched around her inclusion. Quickly, she discovers she's a robot and now has to escape or fight for her cyber life, surrounded by people that see her nothing more than a bucket of bolts. I would say right away, you'll notice that when you're watching this film that the writing and the comedic timing is pretty great and quickly became the highlight for checking out this movie. This is both written and directed by Drew Hancock, who's been, pretty much a part of a just mediocre project so far.
Exactly, yeah.
Not that I enjoyed Jimmy Kimmel in the slightest. If anything, I absolutely hate Jimmy Kimmel, but he was a sketch writer for his show for quite some time. I don't know if that goes all the way back to Man Show stuff, but at least his late night stuff. But I would say, besides the backhanded compliment there, Hancock killed it here. I think this had a lot of personality to it.
That's good.
And was really refreshing. I think it's pretty clever in how it balances reactions any audience, current day, present day, would have to this tech, and uses that to kind of strategically craft a lot of the jokes on our expectations and kind of playing around that. And I really do think it was very smart for that reason. And given how we are on the cutting edge of everything from AI speculation every day to Tesla bots, it's a pretty sharp script to hit on that old aspect of right time, right place. And I think that's why this was such a surprise for me, because not only was it right time, right place, but it was good on its own as well.
Yeah, there is a fear there that this is going to start being, as we're surrounded by AI with everything. And the word is so overused with everything. What is it going to do to some of these indie films, or how much are we going to start seeing this?
Right.
And, I don't know if I can come up with an example off the top of my head, but we're definitely going through it, and how many people are going to pick up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the first one, you could say this all started with Ex Machina.
Sure.
Which was great.
Yeah. I'll also call back to Spike Jonze's Her. Just for how it deals with relationships specifically. But yeah, no, you're right on the money that I think this could very quickly be overdone.
Yeah.
This is a refreshing enough and maybe first enough as well.
In these years that are coming out where we have 80 new horror films, I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden 50% are just going to start being just like, AI person.
Absolutely. Blumhouse is already doing it. We had AI, or I'm sorry, it was Afraid last year, and then we have Megan 3-2.
Yes, Megan 2.
Megan 2 coming out this year. So we're already there. It's already overdone. But
this no-name director, the fact that he you're like, oh wow, this has style.
Yes,
this wasn't cookie cutter. It's something at least.
It's sharp. It's smart, and it has fun with its premise as well. And that's where coming into this review, I was like, I literally can't talk about anything if I don't give a little bit away. And I'm talking like barely 12 minutes in. Do we get the twist that I think is pretty apparent from even the poster?
Honestly, it was in some descriptions I read about the film.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And if anything, like on IMDb, BD, the description for it, I feel, gives away more to this scheme aspect of the weekend that I feel like is equally a spoiler. So I hopefully it lands right with you folks at home. I don't like to go into spoilers for a lot of reasons, but this one is worth checking out, even if you know that hook, because it really is just the very beginning hook to it. So this had some very naturally funny performances to it. Like I said, Sophie Thatcher was surprisingly good. Despite this android spin to her character, she's able just to have a lot of fun in the role. And just a sharp script that takes advantage of that. Once the plot rips the Band-Aid on her character, it's in full swing. It really doesn't waste your time, which was enjoyable. I really enjoyed Harvey Gillian, I think it's pronounced, in this, especially seeing him kind of break out from the TV version of What We Do in the Shadows, similar along the lines of Jack Quaid, this being a good flip from TV into movies. And lastly, while I only recognize Lucas Gage from a very small role in Smile 2, he stole a lot of scenes in this. I think this being a platform for these actors and actresses, Lucas Gage might be the most successful coming off of this, especially for how crazy things spiral in the story. Really, really great. And again, a huge surprise. I expected Jack Quaid to be the funny man. Again, kind of his very millennial tune shtick. There was just something there that was like, wow, even these supporting performances are impressing me, even if that's maybe just on the shoulders of the writing. So
Yeah, hey, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's the one thing that's on Galen Romulus.
You love bringing that up. I actually was going to rewatch that over the week.
Yeah, you should. You should. Screw Yellow Jackets. You have no time for TV.
Which is increasingly something I'm getting flack for because I've let slip occasionally when I've watched some TV or something like that. I recently actually binged an anime that I was only really like a half watch, but I told someone in my life that, and they were just like, "Wait, you say you have no time for TV?"
Yeah, you got to keep that to yourself.
So yeah, that's under wraps.
I can't help but think that the time frame of this, or the time frame of this film, it being an hour and 37, really helped it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Part of why the Band-Aid gets ripped so early, too. That's just let's not play coy with this. Let's get into this, and let's play with the premise of this robotic angle. And that's what was so enjoyable about it, because it really went places. The least thing I could spoil is just that initial premise, because of all the creative areas that's used to either craft comedy or craft thriller aspects to it. So... while there are a lot of things I could compare this to, it doesn't exactly mean you should skip over it. Sometimes I worry about when I compare films or styles that it's more to kind of reduce it. I always use that as some sort of goal marker, some sort of gauge for, if you like this, then you're probably going to like this as well. And that's where I'm using it here. I feel like in so many ways, this was like the first actually fun Black Mirror episode to exist that didn't end
that's a good,
horrifically sad. So
that's a good tether, though. It is Black Mirror-ish, this whole thing.
Absolutely. It's a comedic take on Her. I think Ex Machina, you hit on the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And overall, this had me just reflecting on a lot of the type of thrillers we covered last year. I think Blink Twice and Revenge both kind of came to mind with this, and just how they're structured. But boy, oh boy, should Blumhouse be jealous of this, because I think it was everything Mithrigan wanted to be, and everything I'm sure its sequel will fall short of with this year. Companion, I wouldn't say is a perfect film by the end, but it has a lot of fun with the premise and might prove to be a cult classic of the year, honestly. In the next few weeks, we're going to get a handful of movies that are obvious fodder for date night or Valentine's Day, being either a action or horror spin to it. And while most of these choices are forgettable trash, and I'm looking to specifically next week as far as forgettable trash goes, this totally gets my vote for what you should check out instead. We're going to go ahead and give Companion a 70 on the dot.
Okay, 70%. Something there for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that a lot, and I'm glad that you enjoyed yourself, and that, us being in Dumpuary, we're just getting into February now, and how bad Presence and Flight Risk was last week.
Yeah,
I'm glad that these movies that not a lot of people heard of, there's actually something there to maybe get excited about.
Absolutely.
Or get excited if it comes onto streaming.
Yeah.
And it's okay, something that we can actually put on.
Absolutely.
That's not slop.
Absolutely. Where I look at next week, and obviously, Tom, you and I were talking about this beforehand, but next week's movies, I don't want to see any of them. Love Hurts with Ke Huy Quan looks like, again.
Yeah, we're
getting into a point of the variations on John Wick and Nobody are make me roll my eyes.
We don't know what to expect with Love Hurts.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to watch it with you, because there's something. It's like maybe it'll be good.
Yeah, and then Heart Eyes. It's from the producers of Scream, and then it's just literally the plot of Scream. It's just all right, whatever. So this really does get, I think I was walking away so positive because I was like, this is something to see in the theme of going to the movies in February,
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this is going to be a good year for movies. I am super...
that optimism.
I bought a lot of stock this year, okay?
Okay. Well,
Sophie,
you campaigning for Paddington. Christ, I'm gonna have to watch 3 Paddington movies.
Might bite me in the end.
yeah, it might bite you.
Might take away my birthday week and punish me, put me in the corner. Sophie Thatcher, by the way, was in that movie Prospect, which you have as like a diamond in the rough sci-fi on the site.
Hard to remember her role in that movie.
She's the main. I mean, you have Pedro Pascal and her, I think.
Yeah, but good. Solid.
You gave it like high 60s, I think.
Yeah.
But okay, so 70% for companion. Good. This is exciting because you had a good week here.
I thought this was really, honestly, stellar 3-spot. I mean, not much thematic connection between these movies, but this was like a really good week.
I love it. I absolutely love that. And it kind of diverse of what we got going on here as well.
Absolutely.
Any other, looking at these scores or anything you want to touch on, add? Anything for next week?
Well, next week, like I said, it's probably only Love Hurts. I'm probably going to skip Hard Eyes, not that anyone's really asking for it. The dance slot is to be determined. I'm actually thinking about already separating from Gene Kelly and just grabbing some loose ends. So we'll obviously put that on the news show for those following along in the study. For the Lynch study, though, we are going to Wild at Heart from 1990 on the dot. Nick Cage and Lynch. I'm looking forward to it.
That's fantastic.
I don't even know what to expect.
Does he have a famous line in this one? This isn't the A, B, C, D.
No,
not that one, right?
I think that's Kiss of the Vampire.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah.
I honestly don't know. I think that's also part of my curiosity because it's not in the, I don't know.
The Cage catalog.
That's a much nicer way than putting it in what I was going to say. So we'll stick with that. But yeah, not in the Cage catalog of memes.
Right. Okay. Well, we look forward to that definitely next week. So, folks, don't forget about that news show that Vince just brought up. So every Tuesday morning, we're having a quick little 10-minute news show, catch you up on what's going on in Hollywood for the week. And we go through the box office, and we'll lock down what movies Vin are covering. And other than that, folks, we'll run it down one more time for this show. We have Singin' in the Rain with a big 83%, Blue Velvet with an 81%, and Companion with a 70%. So as always, folks, we thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you right back here next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. And hey, if you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or get the word out and tell a friend about us. Just a reminder that the Daily Ratings is completely producer supported. We want to stay away from advertising, and we don't want to have any paywalls or tier structures or subscriptions. It's all just value for value. So, are you finding value in what we're doing here at the Daily Ratings? Then become a producer and donate whatever amount of value that is. Just go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. And while you're there, be sure to check out the massive amount of films that Vince has rated. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.